Up with KREM begins now.
Here at 7:30 this morning, thousands of people are still without power in the inland northwest after strong gusts of wind swept through our area. Brandon T. Jones joins us with the latest this morning.
This South Hill neighborhood was hit pretty hard last night by those strong winds. Avista crews are working to repair power in the area. We'll have updates coming up next.
Sunshine and a cooler day following the cold front that brought us all of that wind.
Johnson vaccines could resume this week, and colleges like WSU are considering requiring vaccines for the fall semester. All of that and more coming up in our 3 things to know about the coronavirus this morning.
And right now, high school students have to pay for period products in public schools, but that's set to change by 2022 thanks to the state legislature. This morning, we're hearing from the president of WSU Period about the impacts of the new bill. Take a look at your screen this morning. Here are just some of the videos from the wind that hit us hard overnight. This morning, we are tracking the thousands of power outages we're seeing in our area.
In the southern part of the Northwest, there is a brush fire near the Palouse Highway and Valley Chapel Road area. The Spokane Fire Department tweeted out overnight that high winds and fire in the area made for dangerous conditions and to avoid that area. So this morning, we do want you to send in your photos or videos. Text them to us 509-448-2000. 7:31, good morning and welcome to Up with KREM. I'm Dayton Marie McNichol.
And I'm Joshua Robinson this morning. Brandon T. Jones is joining us on the South Hill to talk more about what we're seeing this morning.
Hey Joshua, it's been a pretty hectic morning here in this South Hill neighborhood. People are waking up and just starting to get their day started right now, and they're doing so without power. I'm going to step out of the way. You can get a closer look. A crew like this one you're looking at right now, Avista, has been moving around all morning trying to get power restored. I've talked with them a little bit. They've been going up and down just trying to get things under control. Also just been walking around talking to some of the neighbors. They told me that it almost doesn't feel like this is a new situation anymore. Over the last 5 years, they've really been getting hit really hard. This particular road looks like a complete vortex of wind just swept through and knocked everything down in its way in terms of power lines. So people are still waiting for that power to get restored. But take a listen to one of the neighbors that I spoke with this morning.
Yeah, we had in January, we had a big tree over there, a 132-year-old tree, and that neighbor's cutting down a lot of their trees right now. In this street, we've had problems over the years, especially starting about 5 years ago when we had the windstorm, and it just continues. Crunch cars and houses, and yeah.
So what's it like? You were telling me you texted somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really unfortunate situation. Not sure how long the power will actually be out in this particular area. Deborah, the woman I was just speaking with, she told me she expects it to be on about an hour or so. But like I said, I have been talking to Avista crews. They've been doing a great job just in terms of trying to get these power lines back up and working again. Joshua, Dana Marie.
And of course, we're going to keep our eyes on Brandon's situation outside. Thank you for checking in with us, Brandon. But we can all see, Jeremy, as we look at those trees not swaying like we were in the winds from last night, right?
Big change here in just the past few hours. We've watched that wind really start to die down. Our strongest wind gust officially here in Spokane, 47 miles per hour. You make your way over to Speltz Field, kind of Spokane Valley area, 43 miles per hour there. Stronger winds up in North Idaho and down to our south. But here you go. Now we're watching the wind die down. Wind out of the north-northeast at about 14 miles per hour and calming. 38 degrees here in Spokane. And that's about where we sit in Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint as well. A little bit warmer out in central portions of the state, but the big difference today and yesterday is going to be our temperatures. Wind will continue to ease as we head into the afternoon. That's a bit of good news for all of you. We'll watch that wind continue to die down, basically become light this evening. And all in all, it is about the sunshine today. We hang on to the sun, but despite that, that cold front did a number to our temperatures. All that wind ushered in a cooler air mass. So for us, temperatures go from the 70s over the weekend back down into the 50s today. It's likely we do not hit 60 degrees here in Spokane, but we sure try. You'll notice colder weather today, but a warm-up is in the works. I'll have those details coming up.
Coming up on 7:35 now this morning, we're also tracking several power outages in our area.
Here are the latest numbers from around the inland Northwest. Now, Avista is reporting over 2,400 customers without power across Washington and North Idaho this morning.
Also this morning, Inland Power is reporting over 3,400 outages in the area. Most of those outages are in Spokane County.
And Cooney Electric is reporting just over 1,200 power outages. Of course, we will keep you updated on those outages all morning long, especially on KREM.com.
And the closing arguments of the Derek Chauvin trial started just a few minutes ago. We're going to take a listen to what's happening right now.
9 minutes and 29 seconds. He's surrounded by strangers, not a familiar face to say his final words. But he did say them to someone. He said them to someone who he did not know by name, but he knew him from the uniform he wore and the badge he wore. And he called him Mr. Officer. That's what he called him, Mr. Officer. Mr. Officer would help. We call the police when we need help. And he pleaded with Mr. Officer. George Floyd's final words on May 25, 2020 were, "Please, I can't breathe." And he said those words to Mr. Officer. He said those words to the defendant. He asked for help with his very last breath. But Mr. Officer did not help. The defendant did not help. He stayed on top of him, continued to push him down, to grind his knees, to twist his hand, to twist his fingers into the handcuffs that bound him, looking at him, staring down at times.
And we have been listening to representatives with the prosecution making their final closing arguments to the jurors. They will be followed by representatives from the defense team doing the same. And after those closing arguments, jurors will be sequestered for as long as it takes for them to deliberate on this case. Meanwhile, the city of Minneapolis is watching and preparing for the jury's verdict. Members of the Minneapolis National Guard are stationed throughout the city. Some businesses have already boarded up in anticipation of unrest. The judge has told the jury to pack for a long deliberation, but hope for a short one. Minneapolis public school officials are also bracing for the verdict, switching students to remote learning later this week for their safety.
Here are 3 things you need to know about the coronavirus this morning. First, we're starting off with an update on the pause of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Dr. Anthony Fauci is indicating the government is likely to resume use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine this week. CDC advisors plan to meet Friday to discuss the pause in the shot.
I don't know what that's going to be, but, thinking about what the possibilities are, one of the possibilities would be to bring them back, but to do it with some form of restriction or some form of warning.
The reason for the pause: 6 women between the ages of 18 and 45 developed clots in their brain within 2 weeks of receiving the vaccine. Second, the CDC now says half of all American adults have received at least one COVID vaccine dose. Now some colleges are considering requiring students to get the vaccine before returning to in-person classes. WSU says it's actively discussing a requirement. They say it would likely include exemptions for existing medical conditions and religious objections. UW says they will most likely make a decision by June 1st. In the meantime, they're consulting with local health agencies. Seattle U is the largest Washington university so far to announce a COVID vaccine requirement for this fall. And third, Washington State has boosted their testing for variants. Labs affiliated with the State Department of Health are increasing genome sequencing of SARS-CoV-2 to detect ever-spreading variants of the virus. Genome sequencing, or genotyping, is a process that studies a virus's genetic makeup to detect mutations or variants. Dr. Scott Lindquist is a state epidemiologist at the DOH. He said the variant first originated in the UK and it's doubling every 2 weeks in Washington.
So coming up this morning, the Washington legislature has recently passed a bill that would require public schools to provide period products free of charge. After the break, we are speaking with the president of WSU Period about the impact this decision could have.
A new bill in Washington aims to help domestic violence survivors get access to medical examiners. The goal is to hold abusers accountable. We'll tell you more at the top of the hour right here on Up with KREM.